Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. This is still the morning edition here on the Real Broadcasting Network. I am Ugochukwu Madumere, together here with Marian and Isaac. Well, big story this morning, the tragic death of a young lady who goes by the name Favor Agbro has sparked outrage across Nigeria, reigniting concerns about sexual violence, the protection of victims, and the ability of the justice system to hold perpetrators accountable. As calls for justice continue to grow, many Nigerians are asking whether enough is being done to protect vulnerable people and ensure that survivors receive the support they need.
I mean, according to available report, the circumstances surrounding Favor Agbo's death have generated widespread public concern, with civil society organizations, gender advocates, and concerned Nigerians demanding a thorough investigation and justice for the victim. The case has once again brought the issue of sexual violence into national debate, and it's at the forefront of this that the renewed focus about the conversation around survivors are treated when they seek, help. How are they received when they do come out with their ordeal, narrating what have happened? There's a lot of questions surrounding this case now.
Well, statistics and previous cases actually show that sexual violence remains one of Nigeria's most persistent social challenges. While awareness has increased over the years about what is happening, and now that more survivors are coming out to speak out, many cases still go unreported because of fear, because of stigma, and intimidation, or even a lack of confidence in the justice system. If you ask them, why don't you speak? They say, what will happen? I mean, they are big people, they'll get away with it, and all of that. Well, advocates actually say those who do report often face lengthy investigations. Sometimes these investigations are not quite sensitive to what they are going through at the moment, and they often face delayed prosecutions and inadequate support services. So what you have, they'd rather keep quiet.
Well, these are some of the issues. But to help us understand why cases like this continue to generate public concern and what more must be done to strengthen protection for survivors and improve access to justice, we're now joined by Dorathy Njemanze, survivor advocate and founder of the Dorathy Njemanze Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dorathy, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, you're welcome. Let's get straight into the conversation. The death of this young lady, Favor Agbro, has sparked quite the outrage over the nation. I mean, from your experience working with survivors, what does this particular case, tell us about the challenges victims of sexual violence face in Nigeria?
This particular case is just a reminder of the grim realities that survivors or victims of sexual violence live with in Nigeria. I am a victim of sexual violence, and I live my life working and supporting victims of sexual violence to transit into a state where they could be seen as survivors because they've started accessing services, that support their healing process. And so this is a grim reminder. Everything that the whole world watched happen within a few days or a few hours is the lived reality of the Dorathy Njemanze Foundation. Every day, different people speak to us about how their family members, their other trusted persons, are taking unfair advantage of them, and the realities of the support that they need are not existent. We have done a lot analyzing the budget to point out the places where the failure of the budget to capture critical needs to support survivors enables perpetrators, and this seems, not to be taken as seriously as should be taken, even considering the fact that elections are forthcoming. And then if you look at the case of this girl, for instance, what role did poverty play?
Mm.
If these persons reality depended, for instance, on 20,000 naira akara business or kuli kuli or something of the sort, how much time would they need to actually generate the resources that made her to go out in the first instance looking for whatever whatever it was that made her to open up to this social media person who exploited her, so the realities, the grim realities of the needs of Nigerian youths in that age range, and the Nigerians who are supporting people in that age range, has come again to public scrutiny. Do they have what they need to thrive, the basic thriving in society of today? There is a litany of issues that comes up with this. In fact, I happen to have seen a video that was done sometime in April where she granted some interview, and the questions that the person who called himself a content creator was asking shows the amount of pressure, the way females and the way youths, it shows peer pressure. These are practical things of how people are pressured into normalizing vices, because she was somewhat shamed in that video for saying she was a virgin who looked forward to having a boyfriend that was ready to remain boyfriend with her until they decided to get married. So the value systems of people, do the realities of Nigeria in its current state support people's value systems? Whether or not it does, where crime, especially sexual violence, emerges, what supports do victims of sexual violence have? One thing that I would like everybody not to forget is that when she was making her video, when she was making her last video, she consistently looked back. What that means is that she was in a place where there are other people who supposedly could have supported her. So our silence, our docility, our actions or inactions, it's important to remind us that people around us may be suffering, but may be unable to open up to us because of our stance so far, or our perceived stance on certain things, or our perceived state of helplessness, amongst other things. And that's why we need to fix systems. We need to be a reassuring system, just in case somebody around us is drowning or is suffering and needs to reach out in some way or the other. And for the Delta State Police Command, finally, something has happened in by bringing in this the perpetrator. You see, the thing with sexual violence is sexual violence doesn't leave only physical injuries on people. Sexual violence leaves injuries in the hearts of people, and these injuries it leaves spans a long period of time. It gets worse many times where the survivor or the victim is a younger person, and that's where foundational trauma has a lot to do with people's coping mechanisms as they journey for the rest of their lives. So for what it's worth, this is a grim reminder of the fact that pertaining to sexual violence in Nigeria is failing people, is failing on recognizing the scope of sexual violence, the contributors to sexual violence, the needs of the people, the human beings who are victims of sexual violence. Now, let's remember that while data lets us recognize that females are more of the victims, there are also males that are victims of sexual violence. While data makes us recognize that males are the majority of the perpetrators of sexual violence, there are also females that are perpetrators of sexual violence. But irrespective of the gender of whoever the perpetrator is or the victim is, do we have systems in place to support victims or to prevent this sexual violence from even happening? What is the role of religious leaders and traditional leaders? The comment sections over this issue across different social media platforms are very heartbreaking. It tells us how divided people are on these issues, so much so that we are not centering humanity. Many people are still doing victim blaming, amongst other things. Even if me and you now agree to indulge in sexual activity, the first no I say is when you should start thinking about how you are retreating, amongst other things, and not how better to go on with it. And these are the issues that men have not understood. These are the issues that men have refused to understand. And these are the issues that are enabled when anytime people ask you, Seth, what did you do going there? Why did you go there? How did you dress going there? You followed the person into a room. What else were you expecting? It doesn't, see, even where there is an agreed conversation between me and you, I can withdraw consent at any time. And the moment I withdraw consent, it should be respected, because I will start fighting for my life if you do not recognize that consent has been withdrawn. And that fight for life can lead anyway. It can lead to my death, it could lead to your death. But these things are needless deaths. If only people recognize, the concept of consent, and recognize the concept of respect for each person's ability to bring consent to the table, then things would be a lot better. Can you imagine a situation where there was negotiation around, oh, maybe if I had gone to the other place, I would have gotten 50,000 naira? I want us to use this as a grim, I want us to use this as a mirror for society. What is the current amount of school fees across board? What is the average cost of school fees across board? How many students do we have in financial institution, in academic institutions? If this is, for instance, how I'm thinking in terms of Nigeria's population now, and the statistics, the data we have, how many people live below the poverty line, how many people need to access education irrespective of that. So this shows us the options, the reality of the options people are going for to be able to participate in society. Whether the critical need was related to feeding, or related to anything that had to do with school, or related to maintaining a house rent, or related to supporting family in one way or the other, Nigerians have critical needs that are not being met, and a lot of people are exploiting these critical needs that are not being met. In the Dorathy Njemanze Foundation, we see a lot of situations where men are having sex with children to be able to give them money to buy sanitary pads. And that means each targeted child, you can do that 12 times in a year, as long as the child hasn't gotten pregnant. How many children are there that are being desecrated? So this is a call to action, that are indifference towards the realities of sexual violence in Nigeria is enabling and worsening the situation of a monster. It's feeding a monster, and the monster is already consuming us. The monster is dedicated to consuming us, and we need to do something practical and critical in this moment to stop that. The budgets are not reflecting the severity of this problem. The budgets are not reflecting providing real-time solutions for this problem. Sometimes the perpetrator is not a social media influencer or content creator. Sometimes the perpetrator is within the home system. Sometimes the perpetrator is within the school system. Sometimes the perpetrator is in the workplace. But by all means, is Nigeria as a country sensitive to the realities and the scope of sexual violence? And do we have enough in place to support that people who are going through that, or to stop it or prevent it from happening? The answer in this moment is no. We have a whole lot to do compared to what is available, and also in comparison with the population of Nigeria.
Well, I mean, you've touched on a wide range of issues, with regards to this conversation. But it appears we need to also talk more on what happens from here on out. Because for this particular case, we're now seeing stories emanating, the police confirming that, in fact, the perpetrator of this crime is going to be charged, to court. But we've also seen videos where he's even pleading with the family of the girl, saying, oh, he's ready to do whatever is necessary. He wants to settle, and, those kind of things. And when we've also had conversations with survivors, there's often this fear about the inability of the system to actually, deliver justice. And I mean, this is emotionally draining for the survivors and their families. At this point, what are the biggest obstacles that survivors encounter once a case, enters the criminal justice system, and particularly for the family of this young lady now, who have lost a very young and promising young daughter?
Okay, thank you for the question. I speak as somebody who supports survivors of sexual violence to access justice, right? Last month, Dawaki police station there was a 16-year-old who a man had insisted was his girlfriend. But supposedly, according to this 30-year-old man, he had consensual sex with the child, and she's a child. The Nigerian, the Child's Rights Act tells us that people under 18 years old are children, right? But this man insists that his consensual sex with the child led to her needing 1 pint of blood. Did anything come out of that case? Absolutely no. The police insist that the family wanted to settle. There's several cases that come to mind. End of last year, November 2025, a perpetrator who had gotten an 11-year-old girl pregnant was handed over to NAPTIP. We know what time of the year this is in 2026. That perpetrator has not been charged to court. These are the real things that human beings in the community see that erode the trust in the the access to justice systems, right? And now this one has come. Do people honestly think that anything good will come out of it? We are shocked at best that the matter is going on, it's even getting this amount of attention. And I dare say that the matter may be getting this amount of attention because of the public outcry. If she did not leave that video before she died, many people would have just, summarized what she could possibly be going through, or the emotions, and let it be. But I think the video has triggered a lot in so many people, and many people are asking questions, and the questions need to be answered, and the systems in place need to look like they're working. Now, it behoves on us to ensure that there are no more favors. Look, since 2018, the Dorathy Njemanze Foundation has had majority of the people on suicide watch as minors.
Mm.
The nation is failing people. The access to justice systems are failing. So who is paying for the files? If we followed Barrister Awele, she has brought up the parents of these people who have said they took the girl to several hospitals to try and save her. And now they amassed over about 7 million, and they're trying to raise the money because they need to pay. And according to them, this is money that they are not used to have been, that they didn't see before this kind of problem came up. And they now have to bring up this money. They speak about how they need to pay for police to move from one place to the other during investigations. These are things we have always spoken to when we speak about the need for reforms in the policing systems. And so if these things are not fixed, the burden of the cost of access to justice will continually be on the victims. Let's remember that majority of the people who perpetrate sexual crimes do this on grounds of power. It's a power play. They look for people who they are more powerful than, or who are more vulnerable. They prey on vulnerability. They attack people who don't have the means to fight them back. And so if we keep on looking at this, you see a lot of children come into play, a lot of women, a lot of people in rural areas, a lot of people in the workplace, in the financial, in the academic institutions, amongst other things. But vulnerability is being preyed on. One primary thing that sticks with vulnerability, whether we like it or not, is poverty, especially in Nigeria. The dynamics of poverty and the limitations that poverty brings forth are very important to keep on the forefront, because that is the grounds upon which a lot of law enforcement offices are forcing settlements in cases of sexual and gender-based violence. And victims are feeling, well, we don't have any other option. Let us just take what has come. Maybe he will start a business for us. Maybe he will do this. Maybe he will do that. But I think it's high time that law enforcement started treating these crimes as crimes. Stop telling victims that, Shebina, you will want justice. You go bring lawyer. It's a crime against the state. The state has been failing woefully in holding perpetrators accountable for these crimes. And as long as the state continues to fail, it emboldens perpetrators to continue perpetrating the violence. So what happens next? We need to stand by the family of that girl. She's got a twin. She's got another sister who is devastated. Nobody's talking about how much mental health care that family can get, because this is something they never anticipated. And the family is on social media, so we cannot distance the impact technology facilitated crime or technology facilitated activities have on this issue. The family is seeing the comments, the hurtful comments on social media. The family is also seeing the supportive comments of social media. And these comments will break in different ways. And so, as much as possible, this has given us an opportunity for critical reflection on what actually exists for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. Many times there is focus on the perpetrator, 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 but those who come out of violence don't come out the same, and they need different degrees of support. So the family of this person, needs a lot of support. Um, the community in which this happened needs some degree of support, because a lot of myths about how girls should be, what girls should expect, whether girls should aspire for something or whatever, have come up. And these are opportunities to address all those myths, to ensure that everybody's point of view of this is a healthy view of it. And for people who wonder, in my helplessness, what can I do to help? Many of us, like the DNF people, are on the front lines. Please, it is lack of resources to meet survivors at the point of need that make us need to give up cases, and then they go back to their perpetrators, or it becomes business as usual. This perpetrator in this case, if we saw the excerpts of the alleged chats, with the deceased girl, had said, go and call police. So the person believed that nothing will come out of it. After all, it is Nigeria. So nothing good will come out of it in your interest. And if that is a belief of, if that is an audacious thing that perpetrators say, if that's an audacious thing that community members or first responders, including family, think about the access to justice system, then that already in itself is a failure. It's a failure
All
to
right.
Nigeria.
Thank you so much for all that you've said. I like that you've touched on every angle, from comment section to the roles of individuals in the society and all. Thank you for touching on all of that, because this case is really very much quite emotional. Like you rightly mentioned, she has a twin. That twin sister is also watching to see how justice will be served at the end of the day. There's a little girl in that community. This is just one out of many that we just had to see because of social media helped. I'm sure one also happened that same day that didn't even make it to social media or even to the news. That person just had to cover up because of all of this. What's going to happen? Where's our call to action? Who are we going to hold responsible? Some will say, oh, the presidency, oh, the National Assembly should pass the law, oh, there should be a law to this, oh, there should be that. Where should we start the call to action? Is it from the local government, from the governors of the state, from the immediate rep of the society, of the community now, the police in that community? Where should the call to action, where should the accountability, where should we start holding those responsible to have these perpetrators, face justice? Where should you start from? Because all that you highlighted, even from the comment section, it kind of show a level of ignorance as well going on. Some people don't even know what to do even after all of this happened, because this lady got back from that journey to see that guy, even also told her parents what had happened. And if something was done, I don't think it would have resulted to her going to make a video and then, ending her life. What could have the parents should have done, or even someone she had spoken to should have done in this case, and then the call to action? Where should it start from?
Well, everybody has a role to play. Family has a role to play. First of all, family needs to be better. Family needs to be better sensitized, better enlightened on our impact, whether we like it or not. The social values that we give everybody, social values we give girls, and how we differ from the social values we give boys. Family needs to be enlightened on all of these things. The basic community needs to be better enlightened. Social media users need to be better enlightened. Everybody has their role that they play. But again, for the girl, was there a place she knew that she could go to? Is there a sexual assault referral center that is available to her community? And that's why I say things like, when states come out and tell us how many sexual assault referral centers are available in the states, my next question is, how many communities are in that state? And how many people in the communities in the states even know about the service, let alone have access to the service? These are critical questions that can be asked. So was there a sexual assault referral center there? Did the girl that that died know about the Sexual Assault Referral Center, because sometimes the fact that many people reach out to the Dorathy Njemanze Foundation is the only reason why there was an opportunity to appeal to them to rethink taking their lives. That's one on one side. Then when we're doing all these things, I've mentioned that those of us on the front line, there's a lot of vicarious trauma. I am a survivor of sexual violence. I've been in the same situation where Favor was. And I know real time where you get to, and all you're thinking about is, it's time to end it all. But if you don't have the requisites, the requisite support you need, and sometimes that support is just a knowledge that there is a trustworthy system that exists somewhere. That is just all you need. And then that's where it brings it back to what is the government doing. The government needs to ensure that there's appropriate budgeting for all these things. Now, for the funding partners, donor organizations, that are supporting the work on prevention against sexual and gender-based violence, thank you very much for what you're doing. But the Dorathy Njemanze Foundation, for instance, did a critical review of the 2025 budget to know how gender responsive it was, so that the critical issues like this, as regards, access to services for survivors that are missing, we can tell the extent to which the government has started budgeting for these things. 2025 budget is still a dream in so many ministries, departments, and agencies in Nigeria. Till today, it hasn't even been touched as at now. And so the lived lives, the human lives that are dependent on these things, this is where this comes to. As long as we keep, if we don't fix the problem that the budget system has immediately, more lives like Favors would be lost. If we continue giving out palliative measures to citizens, you see, palliative measure is what you give somebody that is terminally ill, somebody you believe is still going to die anyway. So let you just, give some placebo effect, something to make them to stay. We are tired of palliative measures. 20,000 naira grants is not doing enough for the human beings in Nigeria today. You can't pay rent with it. You cannot do transportation with it. You can't buy meaningful fuel with it. You can't, there's a whole lot of you can't with it. The cost of renewing driving license, the cost of the basics, the most basic, even the national, to get a national identity number, you need to make some degree of payment. The cost of all these things on Nigerians is very telling. And if we don't have a means of, earning money, keeping our money, utilizing the money, enjoying security, and not dissipating the little resources that are coming on providing the most basic things that the government is supposed to be doing for us, these things will keep on repeating themselves. Yeah. People will still keep needing to show their vulnerability and keep reaching out to, a lot of people. And the other people who seem to have some resource or think they have something, so many times they don't even have anything, but they will keep exploiting the vulnerabilities that are out there. And that is what is happening. That is what is happening. Right. They are desperate. This is desperate people, right, desperately trying to edge a living for themselves in different way or navigate life, and then a lot of people exploiting. It's the duty of the law to stand up whoever is exploited in the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
And the law must do its job. Right.
Then we need to call it out as a failure and ensure that this stops. So everybody has a role to play. Everybody does have a role. The media, for instance, has a critical role to play by amplifying these issues. By people watching this program, more people are enlightened on the facts, more people are enlightened on the myths, more people are also enlightened on the opportunities. For everybody who has a business, individual social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, you can fund systems that support survivors of sexual and gender-based violence.
Thank you.
With TED Fund, it was done.
Thank you.
So businesses that support us should get some kind of tax rebates. But right now, survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, there's not much happening for us in comparison with the needs that exist.
All right. Thank you, Dorathy Njemanze. Thank you for your time. And we do hope that this case is not going to be swept under the carpet. We'll follow it closely and make sure that justice is served at the end of the day, and for it to serve as a deterrent to others as well. But thank you for your time on the program this morning. We do hope that when we speak to you again, it will be justice is served at last. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and a great weekend ahead.
Well, That's our conversation this morning. Nigerians will continue to demand for justice for Favor Agbro, and many will also be hoping that conversations like this lead to stronger institutions, better protection for vulnerable people, and meaningful reforms that help prevent similar tragedies in the future. After the break, we'll turn our attention to the road to 2027. Can Nigeria truly achieve good governance without confronting